In less than 48 hours, the carefully constructed illusion of a parallel royal dynasty collapsed right at the heavily guarded gates of the Windsor estate. What Queen Camilla just realized behind closed doors is that her 30-year campaign to elevate her own bloodline has been completely dismantled by a single security protocol. When her son, Tom Parker Bowles, approached the private royal entrance for what he assumed was a routine family weekend, he was not waved through with the customary deference owed to the extended family of a reigning monarch. Instead, royal protection officers politely but firmly directed him to step out of his vehicle, informing him that his top-tier security clearance had been completely revoked. He was no longer permitted to drive through the sovereign gates, his name permanently deleted from the Inner Circle Access Registry. This is the story of a ruthless institutional purge, a moment where borrowed royal prestige collided with the cold, unforgiving reality of the Windsor bloodline. This video will unpack the covert administrative maneuvering Camilla used to try and secure a permanent royal lifestyle for her non-royal children. We will reveal how Prince William uncovered the staggering financial and structural exploitation hidden within the palace ledgers, the silent, bloodless retaliation that immediately followed, and the devastating realization that Camilla has absolutely no power to protect her own children from the future king. By the end of this analysis, you will understand how a routine review of estate security became the ultimate weapon in Prince William's arsenal, stripping Camilla of her shadow court and proving that proximity to the crown does not equal ownership of it. To understand the profound humiliation of this moment, we have to rebuild the towering illusion of absolute power Camilla had constructed around her family. For 3 decades, her long game was never just about securing a crown for herself. It was about fundamentally rewriting the aristocratic hierarchy of Britain to elevate her children, Tom and Laura. She survived the vicious public backlash following Princess Diana's death with lethal patience, slowly embedding herself into the absolute center of King Charles's life. But as her own power grew, so did her quiet, aggressive push to integrate her children into the most exclusive, fiercely guarded spaces of the monarchy. By the time the coronation arrived, Camilla felt entirely untouchable. The world watched in shock as her non-royal family members were placed front and center, occupying spaces on the balcony and in the royal carriages that were historically reserved strictly for direct bloodline descendants. She operated under the absolute belief that she had Charles completely controlled, assuming that his elevation to the throne provided a permanent, unbreakable shield around her entire bloodline. She treated her children not as private citizens, but as an alternative royal court. Tom Parker Bowles, an established food writer, suddenly found himself enjoying the kind of elite sovereign access, grace and favor estate privileges, and subtle commercial leverage that takes generations of royal service to earn. Camilla assumed she had successfully overwritten the rules of the institution, replacing the enduring legacy of the late queen with her own looming dynastic presence. But beneath the surface of these highly choreographed royal appearances lay a deep, unspoken commercial desperation. Camilla knows the brutal financial realities of the monarchy better than anyone. She understands that her children do not possess a single drop of royal blood, meaning they hold no constitutional right to sovereign-funded security, no legal claim to royal properties, and no permanent place on the institutional payroll. Their elite status is entirely dependent on the heartbeat of King Charles. Should the king pass away, the protective bubble around her family evaporates instantly. Driven by this existential ticking clock, Camilla initiated a highly secretive, deeply fatal power grab designed to embed her son permanently into the administrative architecture of the crown. What appeared to be a routine palace security review was actually a calculated attempt at massive institutional overreach. Camilla quietly instructed her private office to draft long-term security and residency frameworks that would grant Tom Parker Bowles permanent grace and favor housing on the sovereign estates, along with a heavily subsidized royal-level protection detail. She was attempting to convert the temporary privilege of being the king's stepson into a hard, unassailable commercial permanence, securing his VIP lifestyle long after Charles was gone. She believed she could slip these authorizations through the complex bureaucratic machinery of the palace, while the king was distracted by his ongoing medical treatments and William was focused on Princess Catherine's recovery. It was a breathtaking attempt to hijack the royal apparatus, using the sovereign treasury to fund a private family legacy. However, she fundamentally underestimated the silent forensic watchfulness of the Prince of Wales. Prince William does not leak his frustrations to the press, nor does he engage in dramatic family arguments behind closed doors. He reads the ledgers. As the Duke of Cornwall and the heir apparent William commands the vast financial arteries and real estate portfolios of the working monarchy. When the paperwork for Tom Parker Bowles's extended security detail and proposed residency agreements crossed the desks of the estate's highest financial controllers, William instantly recognized the paper trail. He saw the staggering exploitation hidden within the administrative jargon. He saw royal resources being quietly siphoned off to protect and elevate a man who had never undertaken a single day of official royal duty. For William, this discovery was not merely an administrative annoyance. It was a profound moral outrage. He has spent his entire life fiercely protecting the dignity of the institution and the enduring legacy of his mother, Princess Diana. Furthermore, he has watched his wife Catherine endure the crushing, relentless pressures of royal duty and severe personal health crises with uncomplaining sacrifice. Catherine bled for the institution to secure its future. To watch Camilla attempt to bypass that quiet suffering and hijack the crown's financial security for her own son. A private citizen driven by commercial ambition crossed the absolute final line. William did not scream. He did not confront his father in a fit of rage. Instead, he executed a silent, bloodless, and devastatingly precise institutional retaliation. Exercising his unquestionable authority over the estate management and the royal protection budgets, William issued a sweeping, immediate directive that formally restricted all Tier 1 sovereign security and private estate access exclusively to working royals and direct bloodline descendants. He weaponized the very administrative protocol Camilla had tried to manipulate. The trap snapped shut with terrifying speed. Camilla's private secretary was handed the updated security manifest for the Windsor and Sandringham estates. As Camilla scanned the document, the cold reality of her situation crystallized in an instant. Tom Parker Bowles, along with her entire extended network, had been completely erased from the clearance lists. All proposed residency leases were formally denied. The administrative doors had been permanently locked. Standing in her private suite, holding a piece of paper that systematically dismantled her 30-year dynastic dream, Camilla finally realized the horrifying truth. She may wear the crown, but she is utterly powerless against the man who actually owns the castle. The moment the updated security manifest was placed in her hands, the temperature in Camilla's private suite fundamentally changed. For 30 years, she had mastered the art of the backstage maneuver, assuming she could always outsmart the ancient bureaucratic machinery of the palace. But as she stared at the formal denial of her son's access passes, she realized she had been entirely outplayed by an heir who refuses to let his family's legacy be commercialized. Naturally, in her moment of sudden terrifying isolation, she turned to the one person who had spent his entire adult life shielding her from consequence. She reached for the phone and called King Charles, fully expecting him to crush this rebellion and overrule the Prince of Wales. And that is where the story changes forever. When Camilla frantically detailed the locked gates, the revoked Tier 1 security clearances, and the sudden eviction of her son from the sovereign's inner circle, she expected the king to rage. She expected the man who had waged war against his own mother's strict protocols to marry her to immediately demand compliance from his heir. Instead, what she received was a hollow, devastating silence. Charles did not yell. He did not promise retribution. He simply offered a quiet, defeated sigh acknowledging that estate security and financial portfolios were now operating under the absolute authority of Prince William. He told her there was nothing he could do. That silence was not just a lack of action. It was the ultimate emotional betrayal. For decades, Camilla's entire strategy relied on the absolute certainty that Charles would burn the world down to protect her. But in that crushing moment, the illusion of her supremacy completely evaporated. She realized that Charles is a king entirely constrained by the reality of his own mortality and the surging institutional authority of his successor. Confronted with forensic evidence that Camilla was attempting to siphon royal resources for her non-royal son, Charles recognized that defending her would mean declaring a catastrophic war on the future of the crown. He looked at the chessboard and chose the survival of the institution over the dynastic ambitions of his wife. This devastating refusal to intervene brings us to the staggering reality of Camilla's commercial desperation. When the public looks at the British monarchy, they see historic palaces, golden carriages, and priceless diamonds. But behind the velvet ropes, the underlying truth of the institution is a strict, unforgiving corporate hierarchy based entirely on constitutional precedent. The vast wealth, the sprawling private estates, and the multi-million-dollar portfolios that actually fund the working royals are tied up in the Duchy of Cornwall. And the Duchy of Cornwall belongs entirely and exclusively to Prince William. He controls the literal ground beneath their feet. Camilla's personal wealth, independent of what Charles can legally gift her from his highly restricted private funds, is practically non-existent in the context of the royal empire. She owns no major estates. She possesses no constitutional power to grant permanent royal status to her children. Without Charles actively forcing the doors open for them, her descendants are immediately reduced to exactly what they have always been: private citizens wearing expensive clothes entirely devoid of any institutional mandate. William understood this vulnerability perfectly, and he exploited it with lethal precision. By turning Tom Parker Bowles away at the gates, William executed a public demonstration of structural reality. He used the strict bylaws of the sovereign's private protocols to remind Camilla that she is merely a temporary tenant within the royal apparatus. The land they walk on, the security teams they wish to utilize, and the administrative payrolls they desperately tried to infiltrate all belong to a system that William now firmly controls. With Camilla's covert strategy completely dismantled, a quiet but profound restoration began taking place inside the palace walls. The power dynamic shifted drastically, not through leaked press releases, but through the highly coded visual language of the institution. Following the security purge of Camilla's extended family, the public witnessed a massive, undeniable correction in royal choreography. Princess Catherine stepped back into the absolute center of the frame, flanked by her 3 children, forming an unassailable wall of direct bloodline descendants. Catherine did not demand this positioning through aggressive public relations. She earned it through the quiet, uncomplaining sacrifice that defines true royal duty. While Camilla was desperately reaching for permanent relevance through administrative tricks, Catherine was securing the future of the monarchy with untouchable grace and agonizing personal endurance. This new order is reflected in subtle, devastating protocol shifts. During a recent high-profile state reception, observers noticed that Catherine was wearing highly significant pieces from Princess Diana's personal jewelry collection with renewed frequency. She wore them not as borrowed accessories, but as her rightful, undeniable inheritance. Meanwhile, the extended Parker Bowles family was entirely absent from the sovereign enclosure. That detail matters immensely. In the highly scrutinized world of royal maneuvering, physical placement and access are the ultimate currency. Every revoked pass and every locked gate is a silent, lethal reminder to Camilla that she may wear the crown for now, but she will never own the history. The profound tragedy of Camilla's blind ambition is that she spent her entire life trying to conquer an ancient institution by rewriting its guest lists and manipulating its ledgers. She completely failed to understand that absolute power cannot be borrowed from a transitional king. It must be earned through the kind of silent, unwavering endurance that William and Catherine have spent decades perfecting. The fortress has been built. The administrative trap has finally snapped shut. And as the British monarchy prepares to cross the threshold into its next era, Camilla is finally being forced to watch the future unfold from the outside looking in. Stripped of her shadow court and left with nothing but the cold reality of the Windsor bloodline. Thank you for watching. If you found this forensic look into the hidden power dynamics and the silent retaliation of the royal family insightful, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Let me know in the comments below how you think the institution will look when Prince William officially takes the throne, and I will see you in the next breakdown.